Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and not wait till it's Monday on the Tuesday show with Ted and CJ. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and not wait till it's Monday on the Tuesday show with Ted and CJ. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and not wait till it's Monday on the Tuesday show with Ted and CJ. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and not wait till it's Monday on the Tuesday show with Ted and CJ.
Was that you actually counting down?
Yeah, that was me actually counting, telling you that we're live. You know, so
okay. I didn't know whether that actually corresponded to the countdown on the screen or not. Were you counting down as the countdown happened?
Yes.
Diddle-diddle-diddle-doo.
I do this every week, Ted.
How many letters have you got?
How many? I've got a 7-letter word. I can't think of a 7-letter word off the top of my head now.
That's what we should do one day. We should do the Tuesday show does countdown. I'm sure there won't be any copyright issues there.
No, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure old Rachel Riley will come on the show for us as well, and do all do her bit. So
excellent.
Yeah, I do have I've just thought of a 7-letter word for you.
Excellent. Have you?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, 7 letters.
Superb. I've thought the 4-letter. I've got a 4-letter word for you.
Does it begin with C and end in T?
It's count, but I can't count, so
I'm gonna say, wrong. Is it cart?
Coot.
Coot, yeah.
Coot, yeah.
Coot.
Coot.
Core.
Anyway, talking of words, here's a collection of words that makes up a question, and this is tonight's question of tonight.
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 I wear
the
a
question
hat.
of tonight.
Sorry.
He wears a hat. He's not wearing a hat.
No.
You're not wearing a hat.
No, but it was my favourite.
It was a lie.
It was my favourite Top Gear intro of all time from Jeremy Clarkson.
It was a lie. You're a phony.
I am a phony.
Right.
A big fat phony.
This guy's a phony. Anyway, so tonight's question is thus. Strange question, but there you go. No, tonight's question is, if you could erase one event from history, what would it be?
I think we should just throw that out to the chat first of all. And
yes.
I see you put a comment in there as the intro was running there, Ted. So, but yeah, if you could erase one event from history, what would it be? And you know what? I think you should go first today. With your suggestion, what event would you erase, Ted?
You just said you're throwing it out to the chat.
Well, I did, but they're not interacting yet. So give them a chance.
Nobody's there. Nobody's there. It's just us. Just us, yet again.
The 4 viewers is you, me, and then I think there's me and then you. And,
yeah, that's right.
And that's all 4, right?
Yeah. Perhaps we'll turn up a bit later and add to the audience. Just get some mirrors. Just get some mirrors in. Just make ourselves feel like we're.
I was thinking what we should do is I should create like a couple more accounts. I'll have one running on my iPad, one on my phone. I'll get my work laptop out and I'll get YouTube running on there as well and just stream the whole thing and make our numbers look amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, well, you know how you can get volunteer like companions for the old and infirm and Joe Biden. So what we could do is we could get something similar, but we'll have volunteers that volunteer to help us out a little bit because we're needy.
Yeah.
And watch the show.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should absolutely put it out to all of our friends everywhere and just be like, look, we won't pay you for it, but we really appreciate it if you did come down and do this for us.
Yeah. Anyway, right. What's my answer to that question? Well, first of all, it's a bit of a broad question because it's any event.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, anything can be an event. I mean, I just poured some Lucozade into a glass. It's not the greatest of events. It's something that happened. It's an event.
Would you remove that event from history? Is this how granular we're going? We're going to be like, I wish I put on a different pair of socks today.
Yeah.
I'd remove the event of changing my underwear. Because why not?
This is the thing. What we don't want to do, we don't want to waste it. We don't want to waste it with anything too obvious.
True.
So, right, okay. So let's go with the obvious. So, what's the first thing that might come to mind? You think, oh, what event was terrible and we can erase from history?
Doesn't have to be terrible. It could be a good event.
Why would you want to erase it from history?
I don't know. For the memes. In the name of content, Ted.
For the ruffles.
Ruffles.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. So the place that I was going to with what would be the obvious answer for a lot of people would be 9/11.
Yeah.
Although I think when it came to saying what we want to erase, we'd probably punch it in differently, and it would be the sometime in what would it be? It would be the 9th of the 11th. So it'd be sometime in November. It'd be the 9th of November. Be like, oh, what happened on the 9th of November, 2001?
I love how you just get so pedantic over that kind of stuff. It's like, no, it is September 11th. It's an American thing.
Yeah. But anyway, no, not that. Not that. But then again, if we this is the thing we need to know. Will removing that event affect the events thereafter?
That's a good question. Because the one that the event that immediately springs to mind after that was the 7th of July bombings in the UK.
Oh yes.
That was literally it was 9 months later.
Yeah.
So
that was 7/7. You see, that was easy.
Yeah, 7/7. Yeah.
Do you think that was intentional?
Maybe.
Do you think that was just like the terrorists sort of throwing us a bone, as it were, so that we don't have this embarrassing situation where we've got to express the date in the wrong way?
Exactly. They'd be like, well, if we do it on 7th of July, I was going to say July 7th. Then if we do it on the 7th of July, then there's no confusion as to when it was. They're not going to, it won't be in the UK, the 6th of July, and in the US it won't be July 6th. It'll just be, it's the same no matter where you go. It's the same thing.
Yeah, we're saying it's 6/7. They're saying it's 7/6, or vice versa. Yeah, it'd be really confusing.
Exactly. Tonight at 6/7 Central.
Yeah.
The bombings of London.
Yeah. But it's a weird one though, isn't it? Really, 9/11, because that's the same as the Porsche.
Yeah.
And the telephone number if your twin towers are falling down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or any other life-threatening emergency, or any other emergency.
Yeah, obviously,
only call.
It was very relevant at that time.
Only call 911 if you have two identical towers falling at the same time.
Yeah.
That is the only time you're allowed to call.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Anyway, hi Dave. Well, welcome to the show.
David, you've lit up the chat.
Yeah.
With your presence.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
David, you've missed what we were saying. Basically, tonight's question is: if you could erase one event from history, what would it be? And I think we decided that. Well, have we decided whether or not the effects of that event not being there would be then reflected in the rest of history after that?
There are many things that kind of followed 9/11, which you could attribute to 9/11 happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, I mean, if 9/11 didn't happen, would the 7th of July bombings in London happen? Would George Bush have sent troops into Afghanistan? Would we have then followed suit? Would any of it happen? Would we still be there now? It's the, would have we gone and tried to kill Saddam Hussein? Or it wasn't it? Yeah. All of that. So it's like there's so many things that followed 9/11 that I don't know. Can you attribute all of it to 9/11 happening?
Yeah.
Is that the level we're at?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, well, Bin Laden, that was the other chap.
Yeah, he was the Al Qaeda guy, wasn't he?
Yeah. We stopped talking about Al Qaeda, haven't we?
Yeah, I think they're kind of old news. They're old news, aren't they?
Yeah, I remember because he was missing for ages, and they were trying to find him. They were like, "Oh, is he in Pakistan? Is he being hidden? Is he in a cave? Where's he gone?" It's funny how you forget those things. But at around about that sort of time, well, actually, when he was found, in fact, I was having a conversation with my mother about something completely unrelated, and she said, "Oh, talking of Where's Wally, do you know they found Bin Laden?"
Talking of Where's Wally? Wow.
Yeah. Classic.
Where's Waldo? If you're in America, they don't call him Wally, they call him Waldo.
Yeah, why would they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Any Americans watching, please tell us, why do you call him Waldo and we call him Wally? That would be I'm really interested to know.
And is Waldo a common name in the States?
I don't know. Then again, is Wally a common name in the UK?
Well, it used to be.
Okay, maybe
people were called Wallace, weren't they?
Yeah, I guess
like
so. Yeah,
Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, I never referred to them as Wally and Gromit at that point.
No, that would be weird.
It would be, yeah.
It would be.
Cracking cheese, Gromit.
Yeah. I think there was a Wally in Last of the Summer Wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's an old. I mean, I never watched Last of the Summer Wine. I'm aware of the show, but I never watched it.
I used to like that.
There was Wally Gator, the children's TV show character. Wally Gator. Wally Gator was a swinging navigator from the swamp. Again, really? I think it's an American kids show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But very old though. I mean, I remember the theme song, very 50s sounding. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, we've gone off piece there a little bit, so sorry.
Yeah, slightly. Events.
Yes.
Yes, the event. You see, there are plenty of events out there that a lot of people would want to avoid. Like the bombs in Hiroshima and such like.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about events that I'd like to erase from history, I think about, maybe... not
sandwich you ate or something.
Exactly, not eating that sandwich that made me feel drowsy, or not leaving work at a certain time and getting stuck in traffic, or just things that is that always if I left work 5 minutes earlier, I could have got ahead of it. I wouldn't have been involved in this accident. Or I wouldn't be behind the accident. I'd be in front of it, and it wouldn't bother. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
And, everyone's got kind of 20/20 hindsight in that regard, don't they? It's.
I bought some seafood from a man in a pub in Nottingham once. And I ended up very, very ill.
Yep.
So that's an event that I would want to erase. But I do feel like that could be a waste, considering we've already discussed I could probably save at least 3,000 lives by eradicating the 9/11 attack.
Yeah. I was going to say. I thought you'd say. Go on, sorry.
But if that had not happened, then something else may have happened.
Yeah.
So if that didn't happen for whatever reason, and obviously this isn't like the hand of God coming down and batting away the planes. This is just that whole thing never happened. So what's to say it didn't happen the next day? Or they decided, well, instead, what we'll do, we'll fly planes into. I don't know, into something else, into other planes.
Yeah.
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 So, So I feel like it should be something big, something where you've got the potential of saving lives, rather than saving, a bit of a dicky tummy one time when you had a.
How's about something that may not save any lives whatsoever, but also have the capacity to not allow any lives to come to pass? So David has been in the chat and has said, "What about the meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs? Would we even be here?" And that's quite a deep question. You think if the dinosaurs weren't wiped out by an asteroid, then the potential is they could still be around today, or would have just evolved into giant chickens instead of regular sized chickens that they are right now, and therefore we may not even be here.
Do we know for sure it was a meteor?
I don't know. I'm not a historian.
No, neither am I.
It's just what I read in books. It was an asteroid that came down, wiped out all the dinosaurs by causing some kind of nuclear winter. They all died off, apart from chickens apparently, and other birds, and that's really it. And then people evolved after that. I mean, see, there's the bit I don't quite understand. So let's just look at that for a second.
Yes, go ahead.
Asteroid comes down, wipes out the dinosaurs.
Yep.
Wipes out basically all kind of life on Earth, really, apart from birds and fish. And then humans come about. So I want to understand that stage of evolution. When did humans leave the ocean and then start evolving to be the bipedal virus that we are today? When did that actually happen? Was that pre-asteroid, post-asteroid? How long after the asteroid was it?
Well, it must have been post-asteroid because we weren't around at the same time as the dinosaurs.
Is that for definite? Did we survive by hiding in the caves?
I wasn't there.
With the birds? We were just hanging out with chickens in a cave?
I don't know. Maybe it could have been the very start of human life.
Maybe it could have been.
But in the form of a fish with one leg or something. I don't know. We might have been at the slightly frog-like stage at that point.
Ribbity.
Ribbity.
In fact, sorry, that was the episode of Family Guy I caught in the hotel on Wednesday night.
Right. Okay.
Something about post-apocalyptic Earth, and Quagmire was a frog.
Okay.
And Joe was a robot, or cyborg. Sorry. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, moving on from that. Well, that's completely. What were we talking about? Craters.
Yeah. Meteors.
Okay, so there's a big crater, big meteor. That's right, and it wipes out the dinosaurs. Why would it not wipe out the little fish thing that we were at the time? I think we're probably going to be at that point. We must have been on a very sort of molecular level.
Yep, we were definitely like bacteria at that point.
Yeah,
or amoebas.
But a few million years later, here we are.
Podcasting.
We are.
I'm assuming the universe did not predict that this was going to happen after throwing an asteroid at the Earth. And dinosaurs didn't work. Get rid of that. Throw an asteroid down. They're gone. Yeah. Right, mankind can take over. Oh God, now look what they've done. A pokey little podcast on a Friday night.
Yeah.
What a waste of time.
So anyway, going back, so there we go. There's the answer to that question. No, not the what do we call it? The asteroid, because if the asteroid hadn't hit, then the dinosaurs would still be around. They would eat all the things that try and get out of the sea.
Yep.
We would never exist. The podcast wouldn't exist.
Yep.
The question couldn't be asked.
Nope.
It couldn't be answered by David.
Nope.
Therefore, none of this ever happened.
Yeah, none of it happened.
Or something like that. Okay, but that's interesting. He's gone. No, but I don't think that's a good idea because then we wouldn't exist.
But then again, if we didn't exist, we wouldn't know the difference.
That's also true.
See, there are many times where I'm driving down the road and thinking to myself, I wonder if in an alternate reality I went round that roundabout but I got hit by a truck. But I obviously have no idea because I'm still existing in this life. But in an alternate universe, has something different happened? I mean, I don't want to get into the whole multiverse thing, but it crosses my mind many times. And again, but you can attribute that to what we're talking about here. It's like, in an alternate universe, did the Second World War not happen? Or did the First World War not happen? Was King Arthur actually a real person? And all these kind of things. Did 9/11 not happen? Did the July 7th bombings not happen? Did, all this stuff? Was Osama bin Laden even born? And I just wonder what the world would be like with these what would seem insignificant changes at the time, but could have quite a profound effect on the world around us.
the thing about this whole theory of alternate universes is I don't quite understand where it starts and ends, because there are so many things that are so many events that happen to get us to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
So at any one, if we've got all these alternate universes with different pathways that people are taking or things are taking, how are we ever going to get to the point where we have two universes that are just on the brink of the Second World War? Because there are so many different permutations before you get remotely near there. Why would that even be a point where things diverge?
Well, that's it. You got to start. Well, I say you got to start. You don't have to, but you start thinking about, again, the significance of a decision that you made. It's like, like, I don't know. Again, as I said before, choosing what time to leave home to drive somewhere, or to leave wherever to drive somewhere. In an alternate reality, you may have left 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later. Is that going to have a profound effect on the world around you? Probably not. But then again, you don't know, obviously, because we're not there. But the effect could be you could be involved in an accident, or somebody else could be in an accident because of your action, or just by your presence there. That's changed how someone else interacts with the environment, causing something else to happen. And as David has rightly pointed out in the chat there, the whole butterfly effect. It's the kill a butterfly and see what happens in the future.
I don't think that's it. I think it's, if a butterfly flaps its wings, it's not about killing butterflies.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
Whatever.
But I take the point. I do that, though. I think particularly being on the road, because everything happens very quickly when you're driving. And it's all about the split seconds. And I do think to myself, well, hang on, if I was a split second earlier, if I'd left a little bit earlier, if I hadn't dropped my keys, where would I be? Would I be in the middle of this accident, or a completely different accident, or something else would have happened? And like you say, just your presence, just because I'm there, I might be driving along, somehow distract somebody else who isn't looking, who doesn't press the right button, or whatever it may be.
That's it. It may not affect you directly, but it could affect somebody else.
Yeah.
Because of your presence in that environment. And there's many times I drive down the road and I'll come around a roundabout and come off at an exit, and then I'll look in the mirror and there's no one behind me, and I just think, did I just cause an accident? Because there's no one behind. I'm sure there were people behind me before. Now there's no one. Like, the road is now empty. Have I just caused a huge pile up, or what's going on? And then I might then see a vehicle in my in the distance. I'll be like, oh, thank goodness for that.
On its roof.
Yeah.
Blood everywhere.
That's it. Well, that's like, it's just it's coming to it's catching up with me, but it's rolling over on its roof. I'll be like, oh, whoops, sorry. But it's I don't know why I think that way when I'm on the road. I think it's just because I've got time to think about stuff, and that's where my mind goes.
Well, like I say, my mind goes in a similar direction, but you're specifically thinking about lots of different alternate universes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I'm just thinking, like, I mean, I was on Monday. I drove to Edinburgh, and I was going up the A1 and got caught in some traffic by Doncaster because there's roadworks. And I thought to myself at that point, I was like, if I left 15 minutes earlier, would I still be in this traffic jam? Would I still be at a standstill right now? I mean, the answer is probably yes, but I'd be further forward. Yeah. But again, it's that I actually have no idea, because I don't know. You just don't know.
No, you don't know.
No, you just have no idea. So...
You've got no idea what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I think this is the problem with this question, because we can pick things out and we can say to ourselves, well, actually, the Second World War was pretty horrible.
Horrific, yeah.
Why don't we just not have that?
Yeah, just take it out. Pluck it out.
Pluck it out. But the problem is, you can't pluck it out without it having an effect on everything else. Now, had it not been for now, and this is where it gets really interesting, because then people start talking about fate. So let's say, for example, let's say we take out the Second World War. We say, no, that didn't happen now. Well, if that didn't happen, my grandparents wouldn't have met. And if my grandparents hadn't have met, then I wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be rather inconvenient for me.
Would it though? Because you wouldn't know.
That's true, but
you'd have no idea.
But I wouldn't exist. So, and then you've got the other aspect, which is, well, if the Second World War didn't exist, who's to say that there wouldn't have been a Second World War, but it's just a month later or 10 years later, and it's, in a different area, or it starts kind of differently.
Or a different person that's leading it, because let's say you want to stop the Second World War, you take out Adolf Hitler, but then who's to say someone else isn't going to step into those shoes because they've got the same ideology and
but then you've got yes, but then there's a lot of different conditions that got Germany to that point in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe had different decisions been made after the First World War, then there wouldn't have been the breeding ground for what came afterwards.
Yep, exactly.
So if the First World War hadn't existed, maybe the Second World War would not have existed.
Exactly.
In fact, that would be a direct correlation.
Yeah, one would assume that's a direct correlation, yeah.
Maybe if we hadn't have had the First World War, we'd have had peace ever since. We just don't know.
Oh, could you imagine? We could have, such tech. Well, then again, the other thing to consider maybe is I just thought about this because it's one of those things that people say, and it's like a lot of technological advancement comes from wartime. It's the need to develop quickly better technology, better weapons, or whatever. So there's a significant amount of technological advancement during times of war.
Yeah.
So would we be in the position we're in now with smartphones and computers and streaming and all this stuff? Would that actually exist if the First World War never happened?
Also, not just technology, but also the way in which people act, and I mean in a social sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the saying that what is it? Hard times create. David, get Googling. Hard times create. No, difficult times create hard men.
Giggly.
And easy times create weak men, and then weak men create difficult times create strong men.
Circular.
Yeah,
this whole circular thing.
I'm sure that's not the wording, but that's the general idea.
Yeah.
And then you had that kind of circular thing. So there are actions, or there are things happening after the Second World War, which if we hadn't have had the war, may not have happened. So it's all very well saying, well, we had the war, but at least nobody died in the war. But all the people that wouldn't have been born, because we had a boom. We had the boomers, of course.
Yep.
So we got the baby boomers. Now they wouldn't have been born because there wouldn't have been that time of hardship, which then came to an end. No, hang on. I think I've got the wrong way around.
I get where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Bex has been in the chat. Welcome along, Bex. Good to see you. She said, but there would also be no songs about Hitler's balls, which is really true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, he only had one ball. The other was in the Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah. I don't remember the song exactly.
There's a sketch. Have you seen the sketch? Which is, I've forgotten who does it now. They do the pilots. The two.
Armstrong. Armstrong and Miller.
Armstrong and Miller. That's right.
Yeah, and they do the isn't it
Yes.
though? Where they're basically trying to be modern day chavs, if you like, but with posh, Royal Air Force British accents.
Yeah.
And they're quite interesting. I quite like those.
Yeah. But they did a sketch about the Hitler's balls.
Okay.
The Hitler's balls song.
Right.
And so that basically the way it went was the sketch started with a spy, and he's just getting away from the Germans, and he's calling in with some important information, and he gets through to the War Office, and there's a general at the other end of the phone saying, yes. So what do you know? Okay, Hitler, yeah, one ball. What? And they're making a note of this anyway. And the spy cops it, of course. But anyway, they got this really vital piece of information, and then they go out and find the songwriter and say, "We need a bawdy song for the troops to sing about Hitler." And then he's trying to work out how to do this. And there's lots of different ways that you can sing the song. It's like, so they know that Hitler's only got one ball, and he's trying lots of different things, and he's trying it on the piano and writing out his music, and they go, no, that's no good, and he rips it up and throws it away, and he tries the next thing, and he's struggling with the start of this song. And the start of the song, he's trying various things, including testes, Hitler only had one, and stuff. And he's like, no, that's no good, and he rips it up and throws it in the fire. And he's just leant on the piano thinking, what the hell am I going to do about this? The war effort. And then in the distance there's a train going past that goes, and he goes, what? That's it. Ding dong. Hitler has only got one ball.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. And he takes it back to the generals, and the generals say, I think we've won ourselves a war, gentlemen.
That's great. I haven't seen that sketch, no, is the honest answer. I have not seen it. I might have to go away and look it up after the show.
Absolutely, because I'm sure I haven't done that justice. How do we get onto balls anyway?
Because Bex said that we wouldn't have any songs about Hitler and his balls.
Yes, that's true.
So yeah.
Yes, and there wouldn't be me, because my grandparents wouldn't have met.
Precisely.
And who knows, there probably wouldn't be you for some similar reason.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Or it would have, the butterfly effect would have taken hold, and I'd have died in a car crash long ago.
Possibly.
Again,
or maybe your birth came about from a car crash.
Maybe. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, you just don't know, do you?
No.
You've got no idea. So that, to me, that's a little bit concerning, because not that I think to myself, well, I want everything to be as it is, but there are certain things I want to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to removing any event from history, I've got to be very wary about this. See, whether it's 9/11 or the Second World War or the First World War or dinosaurs, I feel like all of that would make too much of a difference. I think the butterfly would be flapping its wings far too much for my liking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change an event in history until November 2015 onwards.
What happened in November 2015?
Nothing. But previous to that, my son was born. So I would want any events to be, if I'm going to mess about with history, if I'm going to change any events, it's going to be after that date.
Okay.
I don't know what though.
I mean, what's happened? What's happened in the last 9 years? Yeah, what's happened in the last 8.5 years? Crikey, is your son really 8 years old?
He is.
Holy Christ! I remember when he was just a tiny wee thing.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know. So yeah. So what's happened in the last 8.5 years? Significantly in the last 8.5 years, COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one that's just in mind. I think. I'm sure there's something a few years before that, wasn't there? Something around like 2017, 2018 or something. I don't remember. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. But COVID, I think COVID is the biggest thing to happen since November 2015. Yeah.
Oh yeah, since.
Well, I mean, since sliced bread, 100%. Yeah. Much bigger than the Second World War, 9/11. You know.
Right. You know how people say this is the best thing since sliced bread. I may have said this to you before, but I think this sits in the same sort of category as sliced bread. So I think to myself, well, actually, the best thing since sliced bread was ready grated cheese. Because now you can go to the supermarket and buy cheese in a bag, so you don't have to grate it.
No.
So it's similar in a way. You can still buy bread, or you can have sliced bread, and that's just laziness, really, when it comes down to it. If we're honest.
Yeah.
Same with the grated cheese. Therefore, I think the saying, because the grated cheese is better than the sliced bread, slicing a piece of bread is a lot easier than grating cheese.
Yes, agreed.
Therefore, the phrase now should be, this is the best thing since grated cheese in a bag.
I feel like we should just start saying it in just in general conversation. Just be like, yeah, this is the best thing since grated cheese.
In a bag.
In a bag, yeah, grated cheese in a bag, yeah, pre-grated cheese.
I like it. Pre-grated cheese.
I mean, yes, you're going to have to spend a significant amount of time explaining yourself to people. But actually, I kind of like that, because then you can start saying that about any invention, really. You could be like, well, this is the best thing since, pre-shredded chicken, because I can throw that in between a couple of slices of bread, and that saves me a significant amount of time. I'm not cooking it. I'm not shredding it myself. It's just there. It's cooked. It's shredded. It's done. This is the best thing since, I don't know, I've kind of lost myself on that one. Chicken chunks is probably the limit, because everything else is generally easier to do than that. I think anyway.
Yeah, it just seems to me to be the new version of sliced bread.
Yeah, I think people in the chat should tell us what is better than grated cheese in a bag, or cooked chicken chunks in a pack from the supermarket. Could anything replace those?
Better? Could anything be better than ready grated cheese?
You sound like Chandler from Friends. Could anything be better than ready grated cheese?
Could it be any better? Yeah.
I mean, because I was gonna just amend it slightly and change it from grated cheese to just sliced cheese in general. Not the processed stuff that's wrapped in not those singles bullshit. That's nonsense. But you can buy like pre-sliced cheddar. You just go, well, no. So I can now buy a loaf of bread, sliced cheese, sliced ham, and make a sandwich in my car without making a mess, without worrying about dropping grated cheese anywhere. So I can just put a slice of cheese in there with a slice of ham, wallop, there we go. Maybe a bit of mayonnaise in there as well.
I was going to say, no butter?
I don't have a knife. I don't carry a knife in the car.
Of course you have a knife. I mean, okay, you don't have a knife in the car, or not one you want to admit to, but why would you be making a sandwich in the car anyway?
Because maybe I'm out on the road and I want a quick meal, but actually what I really want is a ham and cheese sandwich, but they don't have one that's pre-made on the shelf or ready-made on the shelf. I have to make it myself.
Okay.
So, and Bex has just popped in with what about the butter? But no, if I'm out on the road and I'm traveling and I need to do something in a hurry, I'm not going to then go and buy a butter knife so I can put butter on the thing as well. The other thing I've got to consider is the butter will or margarine or whatever it is more than likely going to go rancid before I get home, whereas at least cheese, stands a chance of lasting a little bit longer.
What? You're not taking it home. You're not taking it home. You're eating it.
I'm not going to use the entire pack of butter while I'm in the car.
No, that's probably why they should sell the little, the
little
ones.
Yeah, the little mini butter packs.
Oh, I do like those. That tastes so much better than any other butter, doesn't it?
Maybe. Yeah.
I would call that breakfast butter.
Yes.
That you get in a hotel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like doing that. I mean, as I said before, I've been away this week with work. 3 nights in hotels, and every morning it's the same thing. Go down for the unlimited cooked breakfast, and a couple of sausages, couple of bacon, black pudding, fried eggs, hash browns, and I always get a couple of slices of bread as well, and treat myself to a sausage and bacon sandwich. But I then have to get the little butter packs, but I have to put them like under the bacon so they soften slightly, so I can spread it easily on the bread without tearing the bread apart. I mean, it's a whole thing. There's a whole system and process to follow to make this work, but it works and it's very good. So yeah, chat's been popping off.
Okay.
Sorry, go on. You're about to say something.
No, I was going to go on a rant about bloody butter.
Oh no, go for it.
Well, I just can't stand.
I can't believe it's not butter.
No, I mean, yes, I can. I can believe it's not butter because it's not butter and it doesn't taste like butter.
Nope.
And what we tend to call margarine, which isn't actually margarine, but what is very suspiciously called spread, is just awful. Just awful. And so there seems to be 2 versions of it. With the one that is sort of a tan color. Tan color?
Well, it's yellow.
Yeah, yellowish.
It's like pea yellow.
Yeah. So it's a bit yellow. Peas aren't yellow. Oh, that kind of pea.
Yeah.
So it's yellowish. To mimic or to try and mimic the color of butter, but it doesn't taste like butter.
No. The only one,
the stuff that's white.
Okay.
Which just seems very unnatural.
The only one that comes close for me is Country Life Spreadable. That's the only one that comes close to tasting like butter for me. But then again, I'm not really a butter aficionado.
No.
Yeah, my mum used to love Lurpak. My nan used to love Anchor butter. I was never a fan of either. And so there's a thing. So you get Anchor and you get Lurpak. Well, Lurpak was white, Anchor was yellow. And the spreadable versions were the same. They were the same color. But they did taste different to their butter counterparts.
Yeah.
Margarine. I mean, I don't know what the strict definition of margarine is. But yeah, we used to get some stuff that was, definitely labeled as margarine or margarine, depending where you come from. But I think I haven't seen margarine for quite a while. It's all something spreadable butter, and it's basically made with vegetable oil instead. Or it's got vegetable oil in it to make it softer.
Yeah, which is not good for you anyway.
No, and the whole I can't believe it's not butter never tasted like butter. So, and it was always that, yes, I can believe it's not butter. I absolutely can believe it's not butter.
There's actually there's a great bit, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but some people in the chat might have seen it. And it was from the Vicar of Dibley. And there's a bit where I think it might be one of the kind of stinger bits at the end of the episodes, where they tell a joke or say something stupid. And it was the young girl who's the verger of the church, and she would usually say something silly or not understand a joke or whatever. And she was trying to explain how there was some stuff that was similar to butter, but it wasn't. Basically, it started out with her saying, I can't believe it's not butter. And what's her name?
Dawn French.
Dawn French. And she said, what? She said, you mean I can't believe it's not butter? She said, no. There's this other stuff that I can't believe it's not. I can't believe it's not butter.
I can't believe it's not butter.
Yeah. So there's stuff that she couldn't believe wasn't. I can't believe it's not butter.
Okay.
Because it was so similar to I can't believe it's not butter. She couldn't believe that it wasn't. I can't believe it's not butter.
Okay.
Yes. So that's how that little bit worked. But no, I definitely can believe it's not butter because it doesn't taste like butter. It's nothing like butter, and probably shouldn't be on the shelves.
Exactly. But I mean, I tend not to buy it. I tend not to buy butter or spread or so because I don't buy bread either. So there's no point in me having it. So
yeah,
I don't cook with it. I use Firelight or depending on what it is, I might use a teaspoon of oil to cook something maybe. But yeah, chat's been popping off anyway. So we've got David said no, cheese is my favourite. I'd have cheese on anything. Now, you know what? I challenge anyone in the chat to name me one food that you can't have cheese with, or where cheese doesn't go with it. I challenge you to tell me one. David's then also said they do have ham and cheese sandwiches. Mousse. However, the cheese is always crap. Say again.
Chocolate mousse.
Mascarpone.
Okay.
Bex has said, fun fact, peas used to be yellow. Really? Is that a thing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you were telling me the other day that carrots used to be...
purple.
Used to be purple.
That was definitely a thing. It was something to do with Orange Island something.
Okay. Well, this seems very odd because green seems like a very natural colour for vegetables.
Yeah.
Vegetation in general.
Well, the chlorophyll.
Yeah. Are you sure about that, Bex? I would take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. I'll say check that.
Maybe a little knob of butter as well.
Do people still do that? So I remember when I was a kid and I used to live with my nan, and we'd have turkey burgers, chips, and peas for dinner. But she'd always get the little butter dish out and would always put like a little knob of butter on the peas. And we used to, and I haven't done that for a very long time. Is that something people still do? Putting butter on the vegetables? Because I feel like it kind of devalues the point of vegetables.
In what way?
Well, vegetables are supposed to be good for you, and what you've done is dropped this fatty, salty thing on top of it.
No, it's not that they're supposed to be good for you. They're supposed to be tasty as well.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, vegetables aren't terrible. But...
There's no problem with the knob of butter.
Okay.
What there is a problem with is some vegetable oil filled horrible spread.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be bad.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
David has also come in with Lurpak is lovely on melted toast or crumpets. Disagree. Country life. That's where it's at. Country life is where it's at. If you're putting butter on toast or crumpets, it's got to be country life.
I just instinctively go for Anchor.
Yeah, see, my nan was an Anchor. As I said, my nan was an Anchor person. My mum was a Lurpak person.
Yeah.
It felt like for a long time there was almost like a butter war between the two.
Ah, the butter wars.
Yeah. The old butter wars of 1987 or whatever.
Yeah.
Anchor versus Lurpak and that. But they were the two big contenders, weren't they? At one point, it was Anchor or Lurpak.
I quite like the little chap with the trombone.
Oh yeah. What was his name? Douglas.
Yeah.
His name was Douglas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He used to play Flight of the Bumblebee.
Yeah. That did make me want to buy better.
I used to like Douglas. He was cool. And then, because I remember one advert with old Douglas playing the trombone, and it was the whole, if you want butter, he'd turn up and start playing his trombone, and then someone put a glass over the top and all you heard was like the glass.
Ting, ting, ting,
that's like the trombone hitting the game. You'd be like, oh. And I was like, oh, poor Douglas.
I remember that advert well.
Yeah.
You see, now we need a little jingle. It was like Flashback Corner or something.
Well, you can make that, and I'll
make it.
I'll fit it in as a widget somewhere on the stream here.
Yeah, we can have that next week. We'll have a what was it called?
Jingle.
No, flashback corner. Flashback corner. We'd have to have that kind of wavy. Ooh.
We could just do that ourselves. Just sit and just.
Yeah. Do you remember that time when? Yes.
Oh.
Good times.
Yeah. It was how they discovered genes. Green peas are dominant over yellow peas, therefore more of them. Aren't yellow peas sweet corn?
Yeah. Well, yes.
I know that's
it was how they discovered genes.
Hairs.
Green peas are dominant over yellow peas, therefore more of them. Oh, I see.
Okay.
So all the green peas have forced the yellow peas out, basically.
Yeah, basically, it's like a turf war.
It's like a pea genocide.
Yeah.
Well, that takes the piss. David's in. He says. He says it's a proven fact that butter is actually better for you because it's made from natural ingredients. Where margarine was invented for something.
Turkey food.
All right, turkey. I seem to have some sort of thing in front of it on my screen.
Oh, okay.
Turkey food, and it was turkey food.
Yeah, and it was
food for turkeys.
It was so bad
food from turkey.
I'm assuming food for turkeys, as in the birds, not Turkish people.
Oh, I see. Yes, it was so bad the turkeys don't like it.
That even the turkeys didn't like it. No. Well, yeah, because and as you just said there, David, margarine is just processed nonsense.
I agree.
They've taken
entirely
some of the things from butter, added a crap ton of vegetable oil to it, churned it for a little bit more, and gone, there you go. There's just a spreadable version of our product that everyone knows and loves so well. And we're doing this because we know how much you don't like having to spread solid butter on bread, because it just rips it apart. But actually, if you're a bit more, but again, gone are the days where you'd have a little tray with a lid, and you could leave the butter out so it would stay soft, but it wouldn't go rancid because it's not exposed to the elements at that point.
Well, the thing with butter is it doesn't even need to go in the bloody fridge anyway.
Yeah.
Because all you need is so what my routine. Okay, when it comes to butter, I get a block of butter. I take it, I cut it in half. That's the first tip. Cut it in half, stick half of it in the fridge. The other half can then be out, and it can go in a butter dish.
Yep, with a lid.
Or with a lid or something similar. Yeah, sorted. Then you come to it, and you can easily spread it on whatever you need. I mean, obviously, if you've got some really fluffy bread, you're probably going to rip that apart, but you would rip it apart with a bit of what do you call it, peanut butter or something as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, if you're not careful, you'll put anything on there and it'll rip it apart.
Yeah,
even margarine. Even your spreadable butters will do that if you're not careful. Yeah. Because we used to, again, my nan used to do it. My stepdad, or when we lived with my stepdad, we did that. We had a butter dish, and it would basically stay out most of the time. Or if you knew you were going to be using it at any given time, you would take it out of the fridge early enough so it could soften up. So you could spread it easier. You wouldn't just leave it in the fridge, take it out immediately, and start using it. That was, a recipe for broken bread.
Yeah.
I would say disaster, but it's just broken bread.
It's not disastrous.
So it's really not a disaster. Depending on how hungry you are and how solidly you stick to that routine of having buttered toast in the morning.
Well, it's not very often that I would butter bread anyway. It's usually either toast or crumpet or something like that.
Yeah, this concept of buttering bread for a sandwich seems weird. Especially in this day where people seem to put sauces on everything, and it's like, go to McDonald's and buy a burger. It's like they put butter on or margarine on the bun. It's like, why are you covering it in sauce anyway? What's the point?
Do they?
I think so. I don't know. Or maybe I made that up.
You just made that up.
Yeah. Well, some places do.
Maybe they do. Maybe they've got reason to. I don't know. But I wouldn't do that because you use your cheese and sauce and all sorts of different things different go on.
Exactly.
But a sandwich, I feel like a sandwich should be buttered.
Depends what else you're putting in. Like, again, if you put sauce with it, what's the point? Generally, if I'm making a sandwich, it's going to be ham and cheese, and there might be a bit of mayonnaise, maybe even a bit of pickle in there. At which point, I definitely don't need butter.
See, it just seems like it's going to be dry then.
What, even with mayonnaise and pickle?
I know, but then I don't know. That just seems. The other thing about buttering the bread is it's I was going to say weatherproof. It's sort of.
It creates a waterproof layer.
It does create a waterproof layer.
A moisture-proof layer.
Yeah. Now here's a great tip for sandwich people. So if you make sandwiches to take to work with you, which I would never do because I would never want to be one of these people that takes their own lunch in. But anyway, for the people that do that, the best tip is to keep their bread ready sliced. Which I wonder what was the thing that was the best thing since before the sliced bread.
Maybe sliced bread was the best thing since unsliced bread.
Yeah.
Sliced bread was the best thing since the bread knife.
Since bread.
Yeah, or just since bread, yeah.
Since the bread knife, actually, yeah.
Yeah, because someone would have made a loaf of bread and would have gone, now what? Okay, we've got to
throw it out.
We've got to rip this apart with our hands.
Yeah.
Maybe there's got to be another way. I know. Let's get a knife. Well, this, and they'll pick out the chef's knife. Well, this is crap. What would be better is, I know. I've got a saw in the shed. Let's go grab that. And this is great. Now we just need to find a nice middle ground between the two, and the bread knife is born.
Where there's less sawdust in that bread at the end of it. Yeah. Anyway, so bread. So you get your what are we talking about? Butter. So you put the butter on the bread. No, I'm telling you how to make sandwiches. That was it.
Yeah.
So in the morning, you get your loaf of sliced bread and put it in the freezer. So you start off with frozen bread.
Mm-hmm.
So you reach in the morning and you pull out 2 pieces of frozen bread.
Yeah.
Butter them, get your ingredients, put them all in, boom. Now you can butter the frozen bread because it's not going to break up.
Okay.
You can make your sandwich, you can wrap it up. The whole thing will stay nice and cool. And then by the time it comes around to lunchtime, it will have defrosted and you'll have a perfect sandwich.
I'll have to take your word on that, mainly because I feel like frozen bread.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's water crystals that'll throw ice crystals in there, and if it's defrosting, you're just going to end inside a tub. You're going to end up with soggy bread. So
I don't think you do.
The way I've done it before is yes, I've taken bread out of the freezer, and I kind of then stand it up on the breadboard and let it defrost. You basically put them together like this, like you're building a house of cards, so they lean against each other and will defrost accordingly. And then I make the sandwich. But at that point, I've also not been using real butter. I've been using spreadable stuff, running the risk of breaking said bread.
Yeah, so that really goes against the whole point of that. But where does the ice crystals come from? Because if there's no moisture in it,
there's moisture in the air, though.
Yes, but if you get a new loaf of bread and stick it in the...
there is going to be moisture in there. Everything's got moisture in it.
Well, sure, but it's not like you... We're not talking about a loaf of bread that's been in there for 3 months. It's just at the beginning, when you get your loaf of bread...
Yeah, when you bought it from the shop and you put it in the...
Put it straight in, and then the next day you pull out a couple of slices.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be covered in crystals.
But it's still going to be frozen, which requires moisture for it to freeze that way. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of breaking stuff, I need a break. So
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? I'm sitting there getting twitchy because I'm dying for a pee. So I'm like, right, I'm going to find a segue somewhere. There we go. We broke bread, and we're gonna break up this podcast and take a short break. So back in a minute, folks.
Cheerio.
We're back.
We are back. Do you know what? If only we could really get the inside track on how sandwiches are made at scale.
I mean, I think I'd sleep better at night.
Yeah.
I really, really would. Oh, look at that.
Wait. Well.
Yeah, look at that.
So, according to David, he used to work in a sandwich factory, and they would use frozen bread to make the sandwich, and believes that it was easier for them to put it in the machine, and it kept the bread fresher longer.
Well, there you go. That also does explain why sometimes when I've bought a ready-made sandwich from the supermarket, where it has felt like it's frozen, it's still very cold.
Yeah.
So that does explain that. So thanks, David. Appreciate that. Thank you, bud.
Excellent.
I guess it is definitely easier to spread the butter as well.
Oh, there's news about the peas.
Oh, yeah.
Update on the peas. The yellow peas are actually dominant over the green ones.
Where do I buy yellow peas?
Yeah, exactly. And if that's true, then where are all the yellow peas?
Yeah.
They should be taking over the world, surely.
Absolutely not trying to debunk you, Bex, but I'm curious because I've never ever
not
seen.
Not trying to debunk you, but you're talking bollocks.
That's not what I'm getting at all. I'm curious. Can you actually buy yellow peas from the supermarket or a store, a shop, anywhere? Can you do that? If so, where? Because I'd like to see this.
Would you like to eat them though? Yellow peas just seems like a very odd thing.
I just look at it it's like sweet corn. That's really all I'd ever do with it.
Yeah, but it's peas. It wouldn't taste like sweet corn. I think that would be weird.
No different to like white carrots, which is basically swede. You know, I don't like swede anyway, but you know, same. But like parsnips, you know, I love parsnips. They're just a different variety of carrots. You know, that's kind of how I look at it. It's the same thing, just yellow. It's like, I mean, I don't like broad beans. No, not broad beans. The big white bean thing. What are they? The big white
butter beans.
Butter beans. Yeah. Butter beans.
Butter beans.
Proper common there.
You want some butter beans?
Want some butter beans, mate? Yeah, I wouldn't try butter beans. I don't like butter beans.
You want some butter beans? with your jelly deal?
Jelly deal?
jelly deal and butter beans.
Fair enough.
I like butter. I personally quite like butter beans.
Just found they've got a weird texture.
Well, slightly, but I think it depends on how well they're cooked. So I think if they're not done enough, then they can feel a bit chalky on the inside.
Yeah, I don't. Like, it's been a long time since I've had them. I just remember they had a weird texture. But you'd always get them in like a bag of mixed vegetables. But I don't seem to find them in mixed vegetables anymore.
No, we used to have a tin of the just butter beans.
Did you?
Yeah. I used to really like those. I probably still do like them. I think we should bring them back. I got that down as being a bit of an 80s thing.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, like I said, I definitely remember through the 90s when you'd buy a bag of like frozen mixed vegetables from the supermarket, it would have butter beans in there as well. Maybe you can still get that. Maybe that was a specific brand that did that, but I haven't seen that for a long time in a bag of mixed veg. But speaking of vegetables in a can, I definitely used to get sweet corn in a can.
Talking of vegetables in the can, how was your trip to the loo?
Yeah, how was my poo? Oh, swift. Swift is the answer.
We got more in the chat. Beck says, no idea. There you go. She goes on to say, I just know it from teaching genetics. What are we talking about now, anyway?
Peas.
Oh, peas, yes. I think they may be modified to just produce green peas.
Yeah.
Maybe they are more desirable.
Well, yeah, but it's like the whole carrot thing. They used to be purple, now they're orange. It's just how we're kind of conditioned now that we want orange carrots. We don't want purple carrots. Same with the whole, people want long, straight carrots. They don't want, weird, odd-shaped carrots and that thing. But I think, is it Morrison's? You can actually buy bags of like misshaped vegetables. It's just it's a marketing conditioning thing that we just want this perfectly, straight carrot. We don't want it bent or lumpy or anything like that. It's like, who cares?
Well, the thing is, I care. I care because I want a perfectly straight carrot so that I can peel it. chop it into battens.
Okay.
I don't like medallions.
Okay.
It has to be battens for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a very specific way of eating a carrot.
Yeah. It is. I just don't. I think medallions are lazy.
I mean, I understand. Yeah, I get that. I get that. The whole peeling things, though, is like, I mean, have you never just like taken a carrot out of a bag, like giving it a quick wash, and then just eating it? Have you never done that? Don't even bother cooking it. Just literally chop the end off, so I'm not eating the root.
Are you asking me if I've ever had raw carrot? Yeah. In which case, the answer is yes, I have.
There you go. So what does it matter whether it's perfectly straight or not?
Well, because if I was going to make battens, it would need to be straight.
Okay.
Yeah. That was my point.
Right. Okay.
Whereas medallions you can do with a bendy carrot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but that's just your personal preference. You prefer battens over medallions. Me, I honestly don't care. I generally don't eat vegetables. Anyone who has seen my entire body shape will understand. I'm a bit of a salad dodger.
Sorry, I laughed a bit too hard at that.
That's all right. I can't be mad at the truth. Baxter said, "Glad you clarified the reason for preferring perfectly straight carrots, Ted. That was an uncomfortable pause." Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah. No, honestly, I'm really not that bothered about vegetables and how they come, as long as they're not going to kill me. I don't care.
Yep.
So, like I said, I do like a nice roast parsnip though. Roasted parsnips. But again, that absolutely. If you're roasting vegetables like that, carrots, parsnips, onions. Well, okay, onions, but carrots and parsnips, absolutely battens. You want them. You want battens out of that. You don't want medallions.
You can't do an onion in battens, I don't think.
No. But again, I'm happy. Literally, just get an onion, cut it into quarters, chuck it in the oven, away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. Happy with that.
So, what about events?
I'll say, so the big event what I took from all of that, the big event that you would remove from history is something to do with sandwiches. I can't remember where I was going to go. Oh, you would remove. Actually, no. I guess the invention of we did inventions last week, didn't we?
I think I sort of narrowed things down to being post 2015. Therefore, the event that I need to remove has to have existed since 2016 onwards.
Yeah.
If I was a liberal nut job, I know exactly what I would pick. But
you're not a liberal nut job.
Therefore, I think I'd probably I think I'd wipe out the whole COVID thing.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. Obviously, the death part of COVID is not good. So yes, there's an argument for taking away COVID. But at the same time,
and any harms with anything associated with that.
Yeah. But looking on the positive side of it,
that's all I'm saying on YouTube.
But looking at the positive side of it, again, I'm not saying it was wartime, but look at some of the technological advancements, society, how society changed. It's allowed many people to work from home, and it's now acceptable to work from home. It's generated for a lot of people a better work-life balance. To have, and giving people the option as to whether they want to travel to an office or not, which works great for me. I love working at home, but it is also nice to have the option to go out somewhere and go and see people face to face. But even things like this, the platform we use to stream here has really come into its own kind of during and post-COVID. I mean, it existed before, but there's been a lot of improvements since then because a lot more people are doing it, and there's a lot more want and need for improvement.
Well, yes, no, I understand what you mean by that. I can see how there probably have been advances out of necessity. However, before COVID, I was working, I think, well, at the time, or just before, I was working 1 day a week from home.
Yep.
So that was already kind of happening. And I know that it's a massive kickstart, but I don't think that's worth it. I don't think that, the best part of 18 months house arrest and a sort of almost a lost generation of, children somewhere who, just because of that particular year it was in, have pretty much worthless, qualifications based on predicted grades rather than what they could actually do, or
teachers'
what
assessments. Teachers' assessment rather than an actual examination and testing of the knowledge.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
All the so much money that was handed out in furlough.
Mm-hmm.
It's all got to be paid back.
Trillions.
Yeah.
Trillions of pounds in the UK alone in furlough payments. And this was the thing, and it was really interesting because I was contracting at the time. I was self-employed, and there was a big thing just after I finished self-employment about corporation tax increases and all this stuff. And it was like, and a lot of my contractor friends were saying, "Oh, this is terrible. I've got to pay more rates. I've got to do this. And I was like, "Are you surprised? COVID cost a lot of money." And the government wants to get that back somehow, but what they also don't want to do is piss off the general taxpayer. So they're going to try their best not to increase income tax, so they've got to get it from somewhere else. And unfortunately, businesses are the ones who are going to foot that bill. It's businesses that didn't pay the staff to be on furlough, or paid a very small percentage if they were still paying, I knew some people who were getting their 80% of their salary from the government, and then the company they worked for made up the other 20%. That wasn't a legislation thing. That was just their choice to do that.
Yeah.
So obviously the government has gone, well, we've paid your staff their salary, so now you're going to pay us back as a business. You're going to pay us back. And I think a lot of people just didn't realise that was going to be a thing. Everyone was like, great, free money, awesome. It's got to come from somewhere.
But the thing is, the businesses didn't have to be screwed over in the first place.
No,
so many businesses just went out of business. That was it. That's the end. Things that have been running for years upon years, just gone. Completely gone. Because if you tell people they simply can't operate their business for a year, what do you think is going to happen?
Well,
that's exactly what's going to happen.
They did the whole, grant that I think it varied per business or something, but there was like a 10 grand grant or something that you could get as a business to help you out. But again, you had to pay that back.
Yeah.
If you took that grant from the government to stop your business from going under, you would have to pay that back. It's not free money.
But the thing is, if the business goes out of business, then it doesn't have to pay it back.
It doesn't have to pay it back.
And so many were going out of business, and it was affecting the small businesses, whereas the big businesses, if you're lucky enough to be Tesco or Amazon, or any of those sort of large businesses, then you can carry on.
Yeah,
you're fine.
Yeah,
and guess what? You're getting all the business from all the small places that have to shut.
You're getting the business from the small places that have to shut because they also can't offer a delivery service, which your Tesco's and Morrison's and Asda's and Amazon were doing it all anyway. But their delivery services boomed. I know a couple of people who, while they were furloughed from their day job, their office job or whatever it was, were taking up work with supermarkets to do deliveries. So not only were they getting the furlough money and the extra 20% from the company, from their employee anyway, they were also then getting more money by going out and driving delivery trucks. And you're like, that was a smart option for them.
A smart option for them, but let's face it, the the money redistribution when it came to lockdown largely went in one direction, and it was to the large corporations.
Yes.
And away from small business, away from individuals, and also away from the government.
Yep.
Which was our money in the first place.
Yes, right. It was our money to begin with. So. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I would. I mean, I think probably. I would, in general, take if I could get rid of COVID, I'd get rid of COVID. It would just be a different landscape that we'd be looking at right now in terms of how people work in general. Like I say, the whole remote work thing became, well, it is still quite big now. You know, a lot of people do work from home, or a lot of people do work flexible hours and locations, and it's become more of a thing because of COVID. But even then, there are still businesses out there who are saying, well, you know, COVID is done. Everyone get back to work, get back to the office. You know, no more of this working from home malarkey, which blew my mind. Like a company I worked for, like my previous employer, were very much like that. They're like, well, COVID's done, so everyone get back in the office. And you're like, well, when you kind of boil it down, it's because they didn't trust people to work from home. They didn't actually trust that people were going to do what they were paid to do. Which was a very weird thing for me. I was like, that's a bit odd, because most people can do this job from home. You know, they don't need to be in the office.
It's when you start realizing that a lot of jobs don't really need to exist.
I'm going to say they don't need to exist.
Well, what I mean is there are a lot of jobs. No, I mean that. Yeah, there are lots of jobs that don't need to exist. And then when you're paying somebody, and they're not even in, you know, it's not even like they're a resource that you can, you know, get to do something else. It's like, oh, can you give me a hand with this box? You know, that they haven't. There's not even that. So whatever they're doing at home on their laptop, unless that really delivers value, should that job really exist? And I think there's a lot of people in those sorts of jobs.
I mean, yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd actually probably count myself among those. You know, my job, I don't think, whilst I try to be valuable, whilst I try to deliver, you know, the best I can to help as many people as possible, the company won't come to a standstill if my role didn't exist. You know, it won't fall over. The company will continue to operate.
Which I find odd if you're involved in IT.
Maybe that's just a product of my mental state. I don't know. Who knows? But no, but I have this feeling, these kind of thoughts quite a lot. But it's not even just about me. It's about some of the people I work with as well. It's, you know, I'm not saying there should be a massive shake-up and we should just, you know, trim the fat and, you know, separate the wheat from the chaff and all that stuff. But it's like, actually, when you really boil down what, you know, without wanting to say too much, kind of how my company operates, there's a lot of people I think their roles could easily not exist, and it really wouldn't make that much of a difference. But at the same time, you know, everyone's trying to be valuable. Everyone's trying to contribute to, you know, make sure the company remains profitable and can continue to operate, you know, efficiently. But when you think about those efficiencies, it's like there's a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of them, and you know, I think that's where, you know, there does need to be some consideration into what people do get up to day to day. Like I say, myself included. I mean, I spend most of my time in meetings, and sometimes they're meetings about other meetings. And I have many days where I kind of finish the day, and think to myself, I have not been productive. If someone asks me what I actually achieved today, the answer is nothing. Because I've sat in wall-to-wall meetings talking nonsense that's inconsequential. Or somebody's just wanted my opinion on something, or I'm involved because it happens to be in the subject area or the topic that I know a bit about. So I'm involved, but actually, if I wasn't involved in that conversation, they probably would have got to the same result. or a different result, but it still would have been, it would still be okay. It's like, again, the business is not going to, suddenly stop because I wasn't there. I have many days like that. But then again, I also have days where I'm like, actually, that was really valuable. And like I said, I've been traveling most of this week, going to see people and, meeting teams and looking at how people operate. And it's been really valuable for me because now I have a clearer understanding of what actually is going on. And I can use some of that information in the future. But yeah, today wasn't particularly productive. Again, it was just wall-to-wall. Because I've been out all week, everyone wanted a meeting with me today. And I'm just like, so I've still got 200 emails sat in my inbox that I need to deal with.
But then, at least in the private sector, there's a tangible, there's a bottom line. So when it comes down to it, they've got to decide, well, actually, we're no longer profitable because we've got too many people doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the public services, such as, but not limited to, the NHS, that's just an exercise in spending money anyway.
Yeah.
So therefore, it doesn't matter how many people are sat on laptops doing very little. It doesn't matter. Because the money's still going to be there.
No, I agree. Anyway, the chat's been going off. So we've got David has said, makes you wonder who runs the world, governments or corporations? It's corporations, and generally oil corporations as well. They're the people that run the world. Absolutely. And Bex has said, didn't they say that statistically people were more productive when working from home? As a generalization, and potentially the stats may show that some people are more productive when working from home. But there are always going to be people who aren't. There are always going to be people who are better being in an office, to be able to actually. So one of the things I do struggle with sometimes is separating work from home. So I do work from home. I have a separate room. That's my office. It is too easy for me to just step outside of that office and come into here, or go downstairs and take my laptop down there and put the TV on while I'm working. I don't do that, but it's really not a big leap for that to happen. It wouldn't take a lot for me to just be like, screw this noise. I've got the afternoon free. No meetings are booked in. I'm just going to sit downstairs and pretend to work while I'm actually watching YouTube. Yeah, it's really not that big a leap forward. And I think there are the fair share out of those statistics. There's a fair share of people who are like that.
I agree. I've got to agree with that. I mean, there are definitely things which are. I mean, it depends on the job as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like bus drivers, far more effective when they're in rather than when they're working from home.
Bin man.
And I do think when we talk about things like this, we are talking about actually quite a privileged small number of people who have silly little jobs that they can do on a laptop from their sofa, if they so wish. Whereas actually, when it comes down to actually getting things done, dealing with people, dealing with customers, sewing them up after their leg falls off, or handing them their shopping, that has to be done in person.
Yeah.
So, when it comes down to the real nuts and bolts of things being done around the country, it's the people that have to turn up and do it that really are the most valuable, but usually get paid less than the people who swan about doing 5 minutes of making it look like they're active whilst they're in Costa on their laptop, and spend the rest of the day just navel gazing.
Yeah, just dicking around. Yeah. Just wiggling their mouse cursor every once in a while to stop themselves from going, being offline or away, being AFK. Yeah, that's me. No, it's not. Like I said, I do try to be valuable. I get really paranoid that someone is at some point going to ask me what I've achieved in a given week or a given day, and I'm going to have nothing for them. If I was the type to just kind of sit there and twiddle my thumbs and expect other people to do the work that I should be doing, I do get paranoid someone's going to ask me that, and then I'm going to get in trouble for it. So because of that, I try to be a bit more valuable. I do try to produce deliverables and think that somebody said to me the other day, they're like, if it's not measurable, it's not worth it. It's not worth the effort. If you can't measure the success of what you're doing, it's not worth doing. And I was like, interesting take, but at the same time, if I have to travel to, well, I don't know, again, even when I'm traveling for meetings, go and see suppliers and things like that, I'm just like, I'm still being, in fact, it's still measurable. The value that you draw out of that is a better relationship, or better prices because of that good relationship. There's things you can draw out of it. It's got to look hard enough. Then again, I say that about everything. It's like statistics. Statistics are great. You can manipulate statistics to make yourself look amazing, but you can also manipulate them to make yourself look shit, if you so wished, or someone else could manipulate them to make you look shit. And it's really all about perspective and context. More perspective, less context. So it depends on how you're looking at it and what information you're actually looking for out of statistics. Someone could be like, statistics show that more people are more productive when they work from home. Well, if you manipulate the statistics to show that, then yes, and then present that in such a way, you'll say, 70% of people are, say they're more productive when they're at home, or you can draw out this value. But then someone else will come along and be like, yeah, but 60% of people would also prefer to be in an office, but they've been told they have to work from home. Also, you can.
It also depends on what you call productivity.
Yeah.
But again, there's a big difference between private sector and public sector.
Mm-hmm.
Private sector would say, well, productivity is getting things done, or making money, or producing something. Whereas in the public sector, productivity is, again, it's down to spending money.
Yeah.
We've got the largest budget. Therefore, we are the most productive.
No, you're
Therefore,
probably
we are
the
best
least
department in this organization because we have the biggest budget. That's how they think.
You have the biggest budget probably means you're the worst department and you don't know how to control your costs. If there's one thing I've learned doing my job, dealing with money and finance people, is the bigger your budget, the worse you're doing. Because it means that you're not keeping control of your cost. Obviously, there's always going to be outliers to that. But again, it's statistics. It's like, I have a tremendously large budget for what I do and for what I'm trying to achieve. My objective is to get that down as much as possible. Sometimes you just can't help it. Yeah. But then again, when I get to a scenario where I'm trying to save money, but then I don't know, there's a renewal for some software coming in and the price has doubled from last year, I look at that as a failure on my part, because I'm just like, I'm not keeping the cost down. It's out of my control, really. I can do my best to get it down as much as possible, but when we've budgeted X amount and they want to charge double that because they've changed their subscription model or whatever it is that they're fucking doing, I look at that and go, well, that's a failure on my part. That means I'm not achieving what I'm trying to achieve, which is overall getting the budget down. So then you end up kind of nickel and diming around everywhere else, trying to pull money in to pay for it. It's just a real pain in the ass. But then again, say IT is a money sink anyway. No one likes spending money on IT, ever.
Not that I want to draw you away from your IT budget.
Rant.
But I was thinking about events in history. Yeah. What event, CJ, would you what was the question? What event would you erase from history?
A significant event that I would erase from history. Why? Or I guess any event to erase from history. I don't know. I mean, cause we've been through and we've done COVID. Mm-hmm. We've done the big ones, 9/11, the First and Second World Wars. Does anything really get much more significant than those in human history? David came in with the, if we could erase the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. I don't know, the assassination of Julius Caesar.
Or the Well, they're coming about the Roman Empire in the first place.
Exactly. It raised the Roman Empire completely.
And I mean, we talk about the first world, the two world wars, but actually, we've had things approaching world wars before that. You think about some of the empires that have, taken over whole massive areas of what was then, civilization.
Yeah. Well, I think about the Peninsular Wars, Napoleonics, England versus France.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody else was really Spanish and Portuguese got involved, Prussians got involved. That was basically probably one of the first world wars where it was just like more than it was more than just one country against the other. It was one country getting invaded by another and them fighting back, and then we go in and help.
In
very, very British fashion.
You got the Ottoman Empire.
Yep.
Also not insignificant. There are plenty of events that I suppose if you take them out, it would save lives at the time, but obviously we don't know what the effect would be after that.
No, exactly. We have no idea what it would look like. Yeah.
They said the First World War, otherwise known as the Great War, would be the war to end all wars.
War to end wars, yeah.
That didn't work out very well.
No.
So maybe the First World War, if that was taken out of the equation, maybe the war to end all wars, had it not been a war, that would have ended all other wars.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Right. Got to push you for an answer.
Oh.
Whilst you're thinking about that, chat, we need to know what event from history you would remove. What would you erase?
Yeah. All five of you watching.
Yeah.
Tell us what it is. Well, David's given us his answers, so that takes us down to 4.
Yes. Was that just a suggestion of, hey, what if that was erased? Would you really want that to be erased? Because then that would, from the sounds of it, that would erase himself as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Is there an event in your lifetime that you would want to erase?
Oh, see, I don't know. I can't think of something in my, because it's that I just don't know where we'd be. I don't know what the effect would be. I really don't know. That's a really difficult one. I'm just going to stick with COVID for this, and just if it's something that
COVID was my answer.
Well, I'm going to stick with that as well. We can have the same answer, Ted.
Right then.
This isn't we have to have differing opinions. We can have the same opinion. That's okay.
Okay. I'm just surprised you didn't go for 9/11. I mean, within your lifetime, about 3,000 people died on the day itself. Then we had the Iraq War off the back of that.
Yeah.
Then it all kicked off in Afghanistan. There've been, wars and skirmishes ever since. I would have thought that would be close to the top of the list.
It's close to the top of the list. But again, I'm looking at it as events that actually directly affected me. I mean, I can't think of a direct effect of 9/11 that it had on me. Me personally.
So what you're basically saying is 9/11 can give a toss.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all, Ted. Don't put words in my mouth like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. No, what I'm saying is, from what I can tell, based on what I know, it didn't affect my life at all. I mean, there's probably something that it affected.
It'd be interesting to know what it was.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if you could actually travel, not back in time, but into those parallel universes?
Yeah, but have a look.
Find out what would happen if something was slightly different.
That's it. What would my life look like if 9/11 didn't happen? Like I said, I mean, don't get me wrong. For tens of thousands of other people, it would absolutely change their lives. It would save 3,000 odd lives. It would have quite a significant effect on many, many people. For me personally, I can't see what that. Because where was I? I mean, I'll ask you the same question in a moment, but where was I when 9/11 happened? I was on a bus on my way home from school, and a friend of mine, got on the bus as I was travelling home, And he was like, "Have you seen what's on the news?" And at that point, I'm like, "Well, no, because I'm sat on a bus." And then he starts telling me about 9/11, and I remember getting home and reading about it, or seeing it on, my parents had it on TV. And yeah, I guess at the time you kind of go, "Oh my God, this is terrible. Maybe this is the start of World War III kind of thing." But then that never really came to pass, and it was, but there was a war off the back of it. Like I say, we went to Afghanistan, we went to Iraq, and we did all these other things. But again, I was not directly involved. It was just, they are events that happened afterwards. But I was not involved in them. But if there was to be, like you say, if you're able to then kind of glance into a parallel universe to say, well, actually, my life is different, and here's the reasoning why, this chain of events that happened, which then affected me. Okay, cool. Now I understand. But from what I can tell, didn't affect me. But where were you when 9/11 happened, Ted? What were you doing?
Listen, I'm taking absolutely no responsibility for the events of 9/11.
But I was on a plane.
Think quick. No, I watched it on TV. Yes. What was it? It would probably be about mid-afternoon or something, wouldn't it?
3 o'clock in the afternoon for us.
Yeah.
Like 9 a.m. their time ish. 9:30 maybe. Like I say, I just know I was on a bus on my way home from school when it happened, and someone told me about it. So
yeah.
But can you think of how it may have affected your life?
No, but again, it's about how if things were slightly different, it could have had an impact. So we're talking about something that led on to a quite a major war, followed by another war, effectively. We're talking about Afghanistan for 20 years.
Yep.
There's a lot of warring going on. I don't know. Had that not happened, maybe something similar would have happened elsewhere, which could have actually directly affected anyone. Again, people in London directly, as you mentioned, directly affected by the 7/7 bombings. But that would have been off the back of 9/11. So who knows? Maybe if that hadn't have happened, the next attack would have drawn something else into that same conflict.
Yeah.
Maybe that conflict was always going to happen, but maybe it would have had different elements to it. And actually, whilst you had you were at school at the time. How old would you be there?
15.
Okay, so let's say, for example, a similar attack occurred, but actually it was 3 or 4 years later, and it drew us into a much bigger war. You could be in the realms of being conscripted to a world war.
Yeah.
So things could be very, very different to the way they are.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That we could have reacted completely differently, and it could have turned into, more like a First and Second World War, where the armed forces are saying, we need you and all that stuff. And like I say, at that point, I'm then old enough to go, okay, I'm going to go sign up and do my bit. But yeah, as it turns out, I was 15 on my way home from school. No chance of that happening for me. And unless there was some kind of conscription going on, there was no chance that it was going to affect me. Plus, I wasn't really fit enough anyway. So that was always a thing.
Oh, were you of a similar physique as a child?
I was always a larger person, yeah. But I mean, yes, I was more active when I was in school, or when I was younger. But I basically, there was an incident on some AstroTurf when I was at school, and I broke my knee.
The knee. Yes.
Broke my kneecap, and that basically stopped me from doing any form of exercise ever for the rest of my life. And that's why I'm now as fat as I am. That's why I have multiple chins and man tits.
How's the knee, though?
It's still there.
Okay, that's good. That's better than the alternative, isn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, David's been in the chat again. He says, I was in a helicopter during the London bombings at RAF Shawbury.
There you go. Which helicopter? Squirrel or the other one? What was the other one? There was a squirrel, and then there was one that was a bit bigger than a squirrel.
Oh, was the one that was based off a Huey thing?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Lynx? No. Lynx?
Might have been Lynx, yeah.
No.
Merlin?
Was it? Merlin? No.
Merlin was the Navy one, wasn't it? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Bex has said, I'd go with World War II because it instigated so much social change. I'm intrigued to know how life would be different if it hadn't. Agreed. Again, it's that I'd love to have like some kind of super, multiverse viewing apparatus to be able to look into alternate universes and see what the world would be like without this stuff. It's like it's the old Family Guy gag, isn't it? It's like Ireland was like a massively technically advanced nation until they invented alcohol, and they all started fighting each other. So, what would the world be like without alcohol? I wonder. I know we talked about that last week about getting rid of inventions, but what would the world be like without alcohol? David said the other one. I want to say Griffin, but I feel like that's wrong.
Peter Griffin?
Helicopter. To the Petercopter.
The Griffin, that does ring a bell.
Yeah, I think there's a squirrel and then a Griffin. Because you had a squirrel, which was a 3-bladed top prop, and then the Griffin, which was 4, which was slightly larger. And then I think they went off to do like Sea King or Lynx or Merlin, or even Chinook if you were really lucky.
Have you flown in a helicopter?
I have. I flew in a squirrel at RAF Shawbury. If you remember, that was my first summer camp.
Right.
And I was with you and some other people that we know.
I didn't fly in a squirrel.
Did you not? Oh, you're probably too busy just relaxing.
Too just busy doing important things.
Being horizontal, because that was generally your MO.
Yeah.
You were just like, everyone knows what they're doing. Off you go. Carry on. I'm just going to sit here. Cool, carry on.
No, I haven't done an awful lot of helicoptering, but I have been in. We don't have them anymore. The Gazelle.
Gazelle, that was the one. It was a squirrel, then a gazelle.
Yeah. Well, the Gazelle was really small.
Or maybe the gazelle was the smaller one, than the squirrel was the bigger one.
But it was quite fun because it's basically you. Then it feels like you're in a like a little bit of greenhouse, and then the sky, and ground, and then if it banks, and then you're going at it's just glass and death.
So if you're not strapped in, you're going out the window.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. No, that was good times. Yeah, I have been in a helicopter. I've been in a Chinook as well. Back of a Chinook. I love that. See, I always thought if I could ever be a pilot, there was 2 aircraft I wanted to fly: Chinook or the C-17 Globemaster. Massive transport aircraft. Favorite airplane of all time: C-17 Globemaster. I love them. I just think they look amazing. Quite graceful in the air. I remember seeing one at an air show. Actually, it would have been Riyadh 2001. I remember seeing the C-17 for the first time and just going, wow, that's an amazing aircraft. Obviously, it was completely empty, and they could do everything they wanted to do with it, flip it over and make it perform some quite complicated aerobatics for an aircraft of its size. But it would have been completely empty. So it was, that's obviously what they do. It's like when you see an airliner at an air show and they take off and they're basically more or less going vertical up, and it's like, yes, because the thing is empty. It weighs nothing, in comparison to, fully loaded with passengers and luggage and fuel, and food. So C-17 was always my favorite, and I was like, I really wanted to be a C-17 pilot when I was younger. But again, having broken bones as a kid, that kind of scuppered my my Air Force career path because I just didn't want to do any form of exercise because I was afraid of hurting myself. I was a complete chicken. Still am. Still am a chicken.
What do we got here? David says the other one. Oh, we've already had that.
Yeah, the other one.
Okay. Oh, David's talking about his helicopter moment where there was a cadet in control.
Yeah.
And they totally locked down the station. It was the Griffin. Yeah. Oh.
Was it the Griffin or was it the Gazelle, David? I'm pretty sure it was actually the Gazelle now that Ted has said that.
Now I've started talking about gazelles.
Yeah.
Bex says, although trivial, I would also erase making GCSEs numbers instead of letters. Oh yes, we're getting back to the topic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about helicopters and cheese. We're back to events.
Helicopters, the world's biggest cheese graters.
Yeah.
But anyway,
actually, no, let's not get distracted again. Yes, indeed. And what do you think to that? Changing GCSE from
it was a weird move.
Grades to numbers.
It didn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And still doesn't today. But even then, it's like grade A. You'd think grade A, that's the top mark.
Yeah.
You don't get higher than A, and then they did A star. Like, well, what's the star? Is this like a read the T's and C's at the bottom and it goes the star, and it's like you've actually only just achieved an A, but we wanted to put a star there just to make you feel a little bit better about yourself. It made no sense to me. A to F or G, was it G? I think we went down to G, didn't we? I think we went A. Yeah,
I think it may have gone to G. Yeah,
A star, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Changing that to numbers made zero sense because now is it number 9 is the highest. If you get a grade 1, that's terrible, and 9 is great or something.
I don't know. That seems old in itself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It made zero sense.
But then I suppose if they did it the other way around, and the least best grade was 9, and then it went up to 1, then they'd end up changing it again to make it 1 star.
Is it 1 star? Yeah,
and then 1
plus.
Star plus.
Yeah.
It's like LGBTQ. I mean, it's like where does it end? Why isn't there a star in that?
Stop! Just stop. Please stop.
but no. Going back to the grades, that did make sense until they did the A star.
Yeah, but it was
at that point, it was very clear that if you start messing with the grades, people will assume that you're doing it to try and lower the standards.
Yeah.
And that's not an unreasonable suspicion either.
It just confuses matters.
Well, then everybody who had an A would have said, well, I got an A when it was a real A.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's A stars. Then an A star is only worth what an A used to be.
Yep.
So now, if you've only got an A, that's only really a B. And then now, well, hang on, what's that? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there were 7 grades, and now there are 9 grades. So the suspicion then would be, well, you just add in an extra couple of grades to slip people under the wire.
Yep. To give them something because they're not.
Added 1, because if you count the A star as actually being a thing.
Yeah. Then
I suppose there were.
But then one of the things that's confused me for a long time, and if there's any Americans watching, maybe you can help me out with this one. A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, C plus, C minus. What's the pluses and minuses? How do you quantify that? There's obviously, there has to be some kind of matrix. The same with the UK grading system. Even when it was A star to G, now it's 9 to 1. There has to be some kind of criteria you have to meet to achieve a certain grade. But what's happening in America is they've got this plus and minus system going on, and it goes from A plus down to F, and if an F is a failing grade. Whereas ours, if you fail, it's a U for ungraded or ungradable or something. But you could still get an F, and that'll still a graded, a passing grade for your for that subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand the plus and minus system. It's like, how do you then quantify that? Surely you could just say, right, there's 10 levels, there's 10 grades you can achieve. 100% is an A, 90% is a B, 80% is a C, and you let's just stick. So what are we saying? So okay, 100% is A plus, 95% is A, 80% is A minus. Yeah, or sorry, 90. But you see, you're just changing these increments to, just boost the mediocrity. To make it more granular, so you can go. Yeah, I mean, what is that? Is that for use when you go to get a job? It's like, well, I've got two people here. They're both equally as good as each other. They're really, they're good people. They're going to be a good fit. This guy got a B plus though. This guy got a B. This guy got a B plus. So I'm going to go with the guy that got the B plus because he got 1% extra. And it's just like, oh, piss off. Just no, ridiculous.
Sorry, I was laughing there because you sounded just like Donald Trump. You're saying, we've got these two people, they're both great people.
I should have done my hair a bit more floppy.
Maybe.
Paint myself orange.
No, what I'm interested to know, actually, is the old grade where we had A, B, C, D, E, F. Was the A star something a little bit extra, or did everything move down a little bit? Right. If anybody knows, let us know. Because
it's about devaluing that grade, isn't it?
Yeah, it would devalue, but it also means that if you're counting F, well, forget F, right? Mm-hmm. Because generally speaking, when it came to higher education and a lot of jobs and things, what really counted was A to C.
Yeah.
So if that's the thing that people are focusing on, then now you introduce the A star. Should that then have meant they should consider A star to B instead of A star to C?
Yeah.
Who knows? If you know, get in the chat.
Yeah. I remember when I finished school and looking for like the first jobs and even subsequent jobs after that on your CV, you'd always put at the bottom like education, you put the school, and then you list the subjects and you'd be like English, math, science, geography, design, technology, grades A to C. And as I've kind of grown up a little bit and moved, my career has progressed and when I'm looking at things like that and I'm like, you've just put grades A to C. So what that's actually telling me is you probably got a C in all of those. Because if you had a grade A in something, you're going to want to shout about it. If you're young and that's what you've got, because you haven't done A levels, you haven't gone to college or university, you've left school at 16, and you want to show off your grades. If you got a grade A in something, that's top of your list. Even if it's music, like I got a grade A in music, it was the only grade A that I got. But it sat at the top of my list, completely irrelevant for any job I applied for. But it was a grade A, and I was very proud of it. Everything else was then B's and C's. I think I got a D, an E, and an F. But most things were sat at C and B, and I got 1A as well. But yeah, when everyone's like, "Oh, grades A to C," I literally had to read it as you probably got a C in everything. Then, you probably just got a grade C in that, but you've put A to C to make yourself sound a little bit better.
It's just an awful lot to write. Having to separate them all and then put the individual grades, which I suppose it's fine if it's your first CD.
So when it's your first one and you've got nothing to put in there, you do list them out. Because you literally go, my experience is my education, here's my grades, here's the small bit of work experience that I did when I was 15, 16, because everyone has to do a week's worth of work experience, and this is what I did, and this is what I learned, and there's it was just it's a weird thing. But I remember people saying to me, "Oh, you should just write A to C." I'm like, no, I got an A I got 1A, 4 B's, 2 C's, a D, E, and an F. And I was like, I want, especially that A and those B's, I wanted everyone to know what they were. A in music, B in maths, science, English, literature, and something else. I can't remember what the fourth one was. Maybe I counted the science twice because it was science double award, and that confused the like. you study science, okay? So you're doing physics, biology, and chemistry all in one, and then they wrap it all up in this nice package and call it double award.
Yeah.
What it actually means is that you've just taken a few exams and they've given you 2 grades for the one, subject area. What they don't separate is whether that was in physics, biology, or chemistry. But yes, I got 2 Bs. I got a double B for my science grade, and then maths and English literature. And then the C was English language. The D was German. I hated German.
Yeah.
D was geography. E was German. F was design and technology, or what people call like woodwork or metal shop or what it was. Designing stuff and cutting crap out on a jigsaw. That was really all it was.
I think we had craft design and technology. That was what it was called. CDT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, we got some more comments here. Bex says, hang on, she's talking about Michael Gove. Maybe that's the event she would erase.
Hang on, there's one from David just above that talking about Jizzle.
Jizzle.
I think he means gazelle.
Yeah.
The Jizzle. Nice one, David. Thank you.
Is Jizzle the shizzle?
Yeah, the shizzle was a lot older than that. Long retired even back then. Did you see the Chinnex taxi while you were there? Oh, at Shawbury, yes. What I remember seeing was so where we were in our little hut thing that we had. You could basically see the flight line like from the front door, and I remember seeing a Chinook on the pan, and the engines were running, but the rotors weren't spinning, and it confused the crap out of me. But that's when I learned that actually helicopters have a transmission. And that's what the cyclic control is in a helicopter, that when you put it engages, so the engine's running and then it engages with the rotor and then it spins the rotor as well. Blew my mind. I was fascinated by it. Yeah, anyway, so that's enough of that because I realised that's a really boring subject. Sorry.
Yes, but how does it work? I mean, is it similar to must be similar to a gearbox then?
It's like a car engine, yeah. So
plates.
You have a clutch, so you depress the clutch, and it doesn't move the car. And then as you lift it up, it's the clutch plates engage,
but it has to lock together surely, because otherwise, what if it slips? There must be a locking mechanism. So once it's going,
possibly, I'm not sure. But again, exactly the same. I think it works exactly the same as a clutch does in a car.
Yeah.
It's 2 plates because effectively once they're going the same speed, they stick together. There's friction there.
Yeah,
and I think it literally just sticks there by pressure and friction. Because when you lower the cyclic control, the rotors slow down. That's because that's the whole thing about. They say if you have an engine failure, because I remember in the helicopter flight that we took, they simulated an engine failure. They basically said, if your engine cuts out, you have to depress the cyclic control or push the cyclic control down, so the rotors can keep spinning under their own momentum. And the helicopter will basically, he said, oh yeah, the helicopter will float down like a leaf. And even then I'm sitting there going, but eventually they're going to stop spinning and it's not going to float anymore. It's going to plummet like a stone.
But they counter rotate. So
on a Chinook, yeah, they do, yeah.
No. I mean, on any helicopter. So the blades are going round, but instead of turning and scooping, because basically helicopters are all about brute force.
Yeah, well, it's still the blades generate lift. It's not a deflection thing; it's a lift.
Yeah, they generate lift, but when you're counter rotating, it's sort of going the other way. Obviously, it's not going the other way. It doesn't stop and then start spinning the other way. But the blades are turned in such a way that coming down, they're still rotating, and obviously they continue to rotate because of the force of you falling.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And because they do that,
it's still then generating lift.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I get that. I don't know if the audience gets that, but I get that.
I'm not. I mean, I said it. I'm not entirely sure I got it.
No, I know what you mean.
Michael Gove's personal preference, apparently. Michael Goves prefers a gazelle. Apparently,
that's the grade 1 to 9 thing.
Oh, I see. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. The one thing I would say about that grading system, though, if you go to numbers maybe that's a better way of sort of quantifying the grading. So whereas ABC could be a little bit, arbitrary, it could be a case of, right, okay, there's so many points per ability. They have 3 abilities, and it's 3 points per ability, therefore full 9 points.
Okay.
Could be. Anyway, moving on. We use plus and minus here too.
Yeah, here it means working towards the next level, but not quite there. I love that. Right, you're nearly there, but not quite. So he's just going to give you a plus instead. Yeah, or a minus. Yeah. And I think A star is for 90% or above. Okay. Like I said, I'm not a teacher. I don't know the grading system myself. But it's that. But again, that, and it's like, and I'm going to use university as an example. So if you achieve 70% or above as your weighted score in university, you get a first degree. Surely you'd want to reward complete excellence, and if someone is able to score 100%, that is a first degree, and then 70% or above is a higher second, and then a lower second, then a third degree.
Yeah.
Surely if someone can actually achieve 100%, get a perfect score, to prove that they are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, you want to award them with a first. Or in this case for secondary school, you want 100% to be A star. 90% or above, you want to say it's an A. They are in the top 10%, 10 percentile, whatever it is, however you can, whatever that is. But for someone who is good enough to get 100%, you give them the star.
Okay, so this is like having a scale of attractiveness.
Yeah, it's elitism.
So where women would be terribly offended if anybody gives them a score of anything that isn't 10 out of 10.
If you say so.
Yeah, but the reality is 10 out of 10 is as high as you can possibly get. So you are talking about a supermodel. So therefore, 10 is almost unattainable for most. Just, it's nobody's fault. It's just genetics. So therefore, 9 would be kind of top marks, generally speaking. So you're right.
I thought you were going to come in with some weird counter arguments. Be like, no, see, CJ, you can be like,
no,
but you're right.
No, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. There should be a mark for 100%, and very few, if anyone, will actually get that mark. But it should exist.
It should exist and should be, and the point is, it's attainable. So the other example I've got about that is one of my first jobs. I remember having a performance review, and one of the things that came up was what that they had. This is how archaic they were. They were like personal presentation. Now back then, I was shaving every day. I would wear a suit and a tie, and I'd wear a tie because the company said I had to wear a tie. So what I actually did was take it a step further and wear a full suit. Not a 3-piece, but a 2-piece suit. Yet I never ever achieved full scoring on personal presentation, and
because you didn't wear a top hat.
Clearly, I didn't wear a top hat and tails and gloves and carry a cane and have a monocle and and tell people not to pass go and collect £200. But I asked the question at the time. I said, I genuinely feel I am better dressed than any other male in this office. I wear a full suit to work every day. I polish my shoes. I iron my clothes. I wear a tie. I even tied a Windsor knot. Again, being in the cadet forces, I learned how to tie a Windsor knot, and that was the knot I used to tie, and I still do it today. And I said, why? How do I achieve? What do I have to do to achieve that mark? It was actually really important to me at the time. Personal presentation. And the response I got was, nobody gets that. To which I said, if that's unattainable, why does it exist? Why are you putting me down because you don't want to give a top mark, or because you believe no one is going to achieve that? And it started a bit of a thing in the office. It went to the service desk manager, it went to the the office manager, and all these people. And I was just like, give me an answer, because I said that is a stupid measurement if it is not attainable. That is like saying to achieve an A star, you need to get 110% mark.
Yeah,
it's unattainable. You're never going to get it.
Yeah.
So why does it even exist? Why is that a thing? And in the end, I never got an answer to it, so I just stopped wearing a suit. I just went, you know what? If that's how you want to treat people, bollocks to you. I'm going to stop wearing a suit. I'm going to loosen my. I actually stopped wearing a tie completely. And they tried getting me on. They're like, oh, company policy says you must wear a tie. I was like, yeah, company policy also says female equivalent. I was like, explain to me what female equivalent is. And they were like, and I went, so if you look over there, there's a lady over there wearing a very short skirt and very, very thin tights. How is that appropriate for the office and me wearing a tie not? And they were just like, I was like, exactly. So until you can fix that, I'm not going to wear a tie.
Yeah.
I never wore a tie again in that office.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, just some stupid way of having a system. I don't know. It sounds like it's just a bloody mindedness thing to say, oh, we'll have top mark, but nobody gets top mark.
Yeah, nobody achieves it. Why is it even there?
It's there for people to try and work towards, but they'll never get it.
Yeah.
So once they know they'll never get it,
I'm going to stop trying.
And you were probably the only one to ever ask the question. It just destroys the entire system.
I mean, I probably am the only person ever to ask, because it was a pokey little call centre in the middle of Northampton for some crappy IT service company that wasn't very good. But again, I was just like, I mean, because at that point how old would I have been then? 22. So I was still pretty fresh into the instructor level thing with the air cadets. So I was taking a lot of pride in my appearance. Again, following the rules, ironing my clothes, making sure they're clean and serviceable, making sure I'm clean, haircut, all this stuff, learning, how to, present myself correctly, which I then took into the office as well. And then suddenly you go, but you're not going to reward me for the hard work that I'm putting in. Bollocks to you then. I'm done. I'm out. I'm kind of done with this now.
Yeah.
And like I say, I never wore a tie in that office again.
Yeah.
Never. It was interesting.
Which for a call centre, I mean, you could be sat there in a tracksuit. It wouldn't make an awful lot of difference.
That was my other thing. I was like, who actually cares what you're wearing? And it actually, because that.
And if they did feel like it made a difference, then they should have had a top mark that people could attain.
Exactly.
I'm totally behind you on that one.
Because it was that moment where I actually went, what does it matter what I'm wearing as long as I can do the job?
Yeah.
What does it matter if I want to come in jeans and t-shirt as long as I can still perform my role to the best of my ability? I kind of get where they went with it. It's that, look professional, feel professional, deliver better work. But it went too far.
Yeah.
Everyone, all males must wear a tie. What about the women? Female equivalent. I hated that, and I still hate that today. Female equivalent. What is a female equivalent? Any ladies in the chat, please let me know what female equivalent actually means. If you want to be that prescriptive for men, you've got to be that prescriptive for women too. Well, and now we're in 2024, you now have to be that prescriptive for everybody. For every identification, you have to be that prescriptive. And funnily enough, I think that culture is pretty much dead now as well. I don't know about where you work, but there were some places. Okay, some people are like, we prefer shirts and trousers, but there were still people in jeans and t-shirts. And I feel like culture, certainly in the UK, has changed a lot now away from that, and it's now, as long as you can do the job, we really don't care. I think there's still some professions where, there's an expectation you're going to wear a suit, like, solicitors and bankers, and these sort. There's still an expectation that you're going to, dress for the parts, but they're also not the places where women are going in miniskirts and thin tights.
Where are those places? Just so I can make a note of where to avoid.
I don't know. Don't ask me this. Let's not get into this shit again. Don't ask me those questions. I don't know.
I don't know what you thought I was asking. Anyway.
Remember the other week when we were talking about flags and you were like, where? And I'm like, I fucking don't know.
No, you missed. Never mind.
Oh, you're talking about right. You're being chauvinist. I've got you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Just rewind that, everybody.
Okay. Right. Okay. We got some comments. So, no, we haven't.
No,
I'm rereading comments we already had.
It feels like a good jumping off point.
I think it does. Right. So I think we got somewhere with that.
We really did.
Yeah.
COVID-19 and 9/11.
COVID-19. We both agree on COVID-19.
Yep.
And yeah, and we'll, never mind the chat. I mean, bloody dinosaurs. I mean, talk about not quite working to the same sort of even the same reach and things. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, come on, CJ, catch up. Yeah, I'm sorry, David. Sorry, bud. I'll let you down. But worse than letting you down and letting Ted down, I'll let myself down. Oh
dear. Right.
Where can people find us, Ted?
Well, if you want to keep this nonsense continuing, tell us, please, if you're watching this later on or listening later on, tell us what you think you would erase from history, what event you would try to get rid of, and also let's talk about what the effect would be. But anyway, you can DM me at Ted James Media, or you can DM CJ at CJ Brooks FM.
You can.
And you can also email us at
CJ and Ted at thetuesdayshow.co.uk.
That's the one. So until next time, it's time for us to say goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks, Bex and David, for all the comments. We love you.